Everyone tells you that your expenses magically drop when you hit retirement. Even those big-shot financial advisors will try to sell you that exact same lie. But honestly, that specific misconception is destroying the dreams of thousands of people right now. Let me introduce you to Mark and Sarah. They played by the rules and saved perfectly for 30 long years. They counted every single dollar and invested it exactly like they were supposed to. The day they finally retired, they actually thought they were free. But literally, less than 2 years in, their entire financial world completely collapsed. Their expenses didn't drop at all. They actually skyrocketed by 18%. And at that exact moment, they realized that the plan they trusted so much was the biggest mistake of their entire lives. In today's video, I'm going to expose 6 hidden retirement personality types. And I promise you, you are going to see your exact reflection in one of them. For example, first up, there's a group of people who genuinely feel completely safe. But in reality, their money is draining the absolute fastest. Second, we'll talk about why going into retirement single is actually far riskier than going in as a couple. Third, there is a brutal financial trap specifically waiting for widows, and it can literally wipe out a lifetime of savings in just one single year. Fourth, we'll uncover a massive hidden trap disguised as healthcare that will take your bank account down to zero in a heartbeat. Fifth, we'll look at the real reason why women's retirement funds run dry so fast. And finally, I'm going to reveal exactly which lifestyle, L choices, will turn your golden years into an absolute nightmare. You probably don't even realize which of these 6 types is quietly destroying your plan right now. But don't worry, because I'm also going to give you a bulletproof action plan. A plan specifically designed to protect your life savings from complete devastation. Look, I know you probably think your current plan is totally safe, but give me a few minutes, and I guarantee you're going to learn things today that you absolutely never knew before. To really understand this, let's look at Mark and Sarah's situation. This exact scenario is playing out in the lives of millions of retired Americans today. They worked the daily grind for nearly 30 years. Through all the stress of a 9-to-5, raising a family, and paying endless bills, they still managed to tuck away a little bit of money for their future. By the time they reached the finish line, their nest egg sat at around $1.2 million. And naturally, they thought, this is it! We can finally relax and just live off this money. But just a few short years into retirement, reality hit hard, and they realized the math wasn't that simple. And that's because they built their entire plan around an assumption that so many people still falsely believe. And this isn't just a guess. Major studies from EBRI, the Rand Corporation, and T. Rowe Price have proven the same exact point over and over again. Their data clearly shows that for nearly 46% of Americans, spending actually increases during the first 2 years of retirement instead of going down. And for 1 in 4 people, that spending jumps by more than 20%. On paper, it sounded so easy to them. You stop working, no more commuting, no more office expenses, so naturally, you'd spend less, right? But they completely ignored a very basic, predictable human instinct. After working relentlessly for decades, people suddenly want to actually start living for themselves. Some people start traveling the world. Others finally pursue hobbies they've been putting off forever. Some decide to completely remodel their home. The mindset shifts to, I've spent my whole life being responsible. It's time to actually enjoy myself. And it's precisely during this phase that expenses quietly explode. The real problem isn't even that people are spending more. The problem is that the vast majority of people never actually built this increased spending into their financial plans. We falsely assume that retirement spending will just follow a nice, predictable straight line. But real life absolutely never follows a straight line. Sometimes expenses shoot up, sometimes they drop, and sometimes a curveball hits that no calculator could ever prepare you for. And that is exactly when the real financial test actually begins for most people. So, let's break down those 6 retirement personality types. I guarantee you're going to see a picture of your own future in at least one of these. Type number 1, the high-income spending shock. This specific group is made up of people who pulled in a very solid income during their working years. A lot of them enter retirement with $1 million, $2 million, or even more sitting in their accounts. So naturally, their first thought is, I've worked my whole life for this. It is finally time to live on my terms. And honestly, this is exactly where the very first mistake happens without them even realizing it. Right after retiring, it suddenly feels like the perfect time to upgrade the house, finally buy that dream car, or maybe just go ahead and pull the trigger on that expensive golf club membership. And because they're generally still in great health and have all this free time, spending on travel, dining out, and expensive hobbies skyrockets way past what it used to be. The danger here is that these costs don't hit you all at once. They just slowly creep up. And when you combine that with inflation and the general rising cost of living, it starts slowly eating away at the core of your invested capital. Sure, maybe 10 or 15 years down the road, as they get older, the spending might finally slow down. But by the time that happens, a massive chunk of their life savings is already gone. And the truly tragic part is, they never even realize that the real damage started happening in those very first few years of retirement. Type number 2, the single's financial risk. If you didn't fit into that first group and you think you're totally safe, you need to hold on a second. Because this second type is specifically for people navigating retirement completely alone. There's this massive misconception that if you're single, your living expenses will naturally be much lower. But the harsh reality is often the exact opposite. Think about things like a mortgage, property taxes, your utility bills, or even home insurance. Those specific costs do not magically get cut in half just because you live alone. When there's a couple, those heavy expenses are shared. But when you're single, you are carrying the entire financial burden on your shoulders alone. And the U.S. tax code and the housing market do not give you a discount for being single. Sure, maybe your grocery bill drops a little bit, but your property taxes, your heating bill, your internet, and your Netflix subscription cost exactly the same. Because of this, the savings of a single retiree often drain significantly faster than a couple's, usually before they even realize what's happening. And this is where the real crisis hits. Most people don't feel the pressure until a massive portion of their savings has already been completely wiped out. Now, we are going to move on to our extremely interesting third point. But before we do that, I have a quick question for you. What state in the US, or what country in the world, are you watching this video from right now? Make sure you let me know down in the comments below. Take 1 second and drop a comment right now. I'm going to read through them, and I'll even highlight a few of the best ones in my next video. Type number 3, the widowhood trap. Now we have to talk about a brutal reality that absolutely no one ever wants to prepare for. Imagine you and your spouse have spent years dreaming about and planning for the perfect retirement, and every single calculation you made assumed there would be 2 of you. But what happens when suddenly your partner is no longer there? At the exact moment when you are completely overwhelmed by the grief of losing the person you love, a series of harsh financial realities suddenly crashes down on you. In the finance world, we call this brutal scenario the widowhood trap. It is one of the most silent yet absolutely devastating financial risks in American retirement. When a spouse passes away, according to U.S. Social Security rules, the smaller of the two Social Security checks is permanently eliminated. This means that many households watch their monthly income drop by 30 to 50%, literally overnight. But here is the kicker. Your property taxes, your utility bills, and all those other fixed expenses don't really drop at all. And then, an entirely new financial burden hits you: taxes. Couples who used to benefit from filing as married filing jointly suddenly find themselves pushed into the much harsher single-filer tax brackets after their spouse dies. So, paradoxically, even though your income just plummeted, your tax burden can actually increase. This double hit, a massive drop in income combined with a higher tax bill, can completely obliterate a person's life savings in an incredibly short amount of time. Type number 4, the healthcare black hole. A lot of people falsely assume that as they get older, their spending will just naturally taper off. But for a massive number of retirees, the exact opposite happens. Because while you might eventually spend less money on travel or dining out, those costs are instantly replaced by skyrocketing medical bills and long-term care expenses. And this is exactly where so many people make a critical, life-altering mistake. They sit back and think, I've got Medicare. If something happens, I'm fully covered. But the scary reality is that while Medicare covers many acute medical issues, it generally does not cover the staggering costs of a long-term nursing home or an assisted living facility. Right now in the U.S., a private room in a quality nursing home can easily run you between $8,000 and $10,000 every single month. And if you or your spouse gets diagnosed with a long-term condition like dementia or Alzheimer's, the care costs for just 1 or 2 years can create an absolute financial disaster for your life savings. This is exactly why the biggest risk to your retirement isn't just inflation. It's the terrifying cost of healthcare. And these costs don't usually creep up slowly. They often hit all at once, creating a financial shock that is incredibly difficult to survive. Type number 5, the women's different risk. Now, the devastating impact of these skyrocketing healthcare costs does not hit everyone equally. For a very specific group of people, this challenge is actually much more severe. And I'm specifically talking about women. Multiple U.S. government statistics clearly show that, on average, women outlive men by about 3 to 4 years. But at the same time, because of factors like raising children, managing family responsibilities, or taking career breaks, many women end up entering retirement with a significantly smaller nest egg. This means they are forced to stretch a smaller amount of savings over a much longer period of time. And when you combine that reality with the high likelihood of spending their final years living alone, the financial math becomes incredibly brutal. They have to shoulder the burden of medical bills, long-term care, and daily living expenses entirely by themselves. And this is precisely why so many women face a level of severe financial stress late in retirement that they never even imagined during their working years. Type number 6, the voluntary simplicity. But look, there is actually some good news here. Not everyone's retirement story ends up looking like that. There's a growing group of people who make a completely different, very intentional choice when they hit retirement. They deeply realize that finding actual peace is far more important than holding on to a massive house, expensive cars, or useless luxury items. So, they make the conscious choice to downsize to a smaller, simpler home, aggressively cut out unnecessary spending, and completely simplify their lives. For them, happiness isn't defined by spending more money. It's defined by having less anxiety and far more peace of mind. They choose to invest their time in their family, their friends, reading, traveling, or just focusing on the small, simple things they actually love doing. Ultimately, the greatest threat to your retirement isn't actually a lack of money. The real threat is being completely blind to the unexpected expenses that are coming your way. And that is exactly why having a rock-solid, realistic plan is so absolutely crucial. You'll still hear people around you claiming that expenses naturally drop as you get older. But the harsh reality is almost never that simple. If there's one major takeaway you should have from this video, it's that your retirement spending will never just sit still. It will constantly evolve as your life changes. So, identifying your personal financial risks ahead of time and building a strategy to handle them is the smartest move you can possibly make. So, which of these 6 personality types made you stop and think the most? Which specific point felt like it was speaking directly about your own future or your family's situation? Make sure you let me know down in the comments. Your personal experience or your specific perspective might actually help someone else make a life-changing decision today. If you found this video valuable, please go ahead and hit that like button and share this with someone who really needs to start taking their retirement planning seriously right now. I'll see you guys in the next video. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and start making those smart, small decisions today that will completely protect your future.